Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What We Are Watching. This is episode number 4. I am joined by my co host, as always, Big TJ. How are you, sir?
Nobody knows nothing. I'm definitely.
You know what?
I'm
We chose to start off at a fantastic episode title.
seriously.
And all of that. So let's get into it. I've got a couple other things before we dip into the episode, but let's get into it because I think I said this to you. We're gonna do a little peek behind the curtain here. You and I talk, or at least message back and forth, communicate probably 2 or 3
Right.
times a week. And we don't always do the deep dive, hour long conversations, all that, but we check in with each other. And I think
Big facts.
I think I told you this. If not, I'm telling you now. Um, if this were, say, a network show,
Right.
the things that happened at the end of season 1, they would have saved it for like season 5 or 6 in a network show.
Big facts.
And you know that they were doing great, and they're like, "We are definitely bringing you back for next season." They probably told them, "We're bringing you back for multiple seasons. How many can you give us, Mister Chase?" But he's like, you know what? I'll come up with something else. We're swinging for the fences,
For the
and just
fences.
and just boom. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't like. I told you, I know some things that are coming up.
Right.
They're
Right.
unavoidable. But I'm like, I did not expect this just straight up right away. But they're like, here you are. How are we going to get out of this?
Is I mean, you said it. I mean, you text me like everybody. Congratulations, like y'all need to know. Like me and this guy are actually friends. So like when he's watching something and he knows we're watching the same thing. I mean, we're old school movie going partners, man. I mean, we went to see some Harry Potters together with the Jonas Brothers movie
Jonas
bucket,
Brothers
man.
movie popcorn bucket.
And I'm back in the bucket business, bro. I'm back in the bucket business. I got to tell you about that during another recording, man. I'm back in the bucket business, and business
Back
is
in the
good.
bucket business, folks. I also do a podcast called The Joey Harris Show. And TJ, I call him like my second chair. He is like almost my permanent co-host on there. I don't do all the episodes with him. I bring other people in, but he is with me and has been with me more than anybody else.
Yeah,
And that will continue. That will continue. I just want to let everybody know if you don't like it, it's not the podcast for you.
there you go.
But that will probably be a episode title. Back in the bucket business, baby.
Back in the bucket business, baby.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's so you send me these messages. Ultimately, I was saying all that because you send me these messages because you and I are used to watching stuff together and being able to get each other's interaction and observations of what we're seeing. So you send me a text. Things are heating up. And I'm like, yeah, because as I've said several times since we started the show, what we're watching, I've seen Sopranos, but I've tried to do something that I hope people will allow themselves to do whenever they're watching something for the second or third time. Try and watch it brand new. Try not to think about the stuff that knowing what's around the corner. Try and watch it with fresh eyes. And it's gotten me excited. So, like I said, nobody knows nothing.
Nobody knows nothing. But although I'll give people a little peek behind the curtain. This is an exclusive for YouTube, folks. I'm not going to talk about this on the podcast. I told TJ there was only one thing I did not like about him is that he didn't have an iPhone. And that if I ever get big and all that, I'm buying him his own iPhone. It's going to be the Joey phone. I'm the only one that's going to have the number.
Yes.
He's going to have the number, but it's just going to be for me, just back and forth. What are you doing? I'm texting TJ on the Joey phone.
It's gonna have a red OtterBox case, because it has to be like the red bat phone from the original Batman series.
Oh man, you're in my lane now. You are speaking my language. But since the
Yeah.
last time we recorded one of these YouTube shows, there was some Sopranos media that went
Yes.
out. If you all have seen the Super Bowl, they took their all new electric Silverado and remade the intro to the Sopranos, this time with Meadow instead
Right.
of her dad driving. What was a Yukon or Suburban or whatever it
Yeah.
was?
Suburban.
That now it was her driving all of this thing, and they remade the opening, and it's her going through the easy pass, and just like they have easy passes now, and she's instead of smoking the cigar, she has a lollipop, but she
Right.
pulls up in front of the diner, pulls up good, and then hugs and meets AJ, and I'm like, dude, I watched that like 20 times.
Right.
Like I'm like, oh man, I tell you what, and we talked about it. Like this would just get me set up. I don't want an ongoing series, maybe a limited mini series or
Many.
limited,
Yeah.
yeah, like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, so 90 minutes long or whatever, to continue all of this and say, listen, we are now deep in the 21st century. We're a couple of decades in, and now things are going to change. It's not like that. And I would watch a Meadow and AJ led show, bring back some of the supporting characters, and now you have Carmela maybe in the Livia role. Uh, I
I
would watch
I
that.
I like where your head is at. I want to delve so deep into the commercial, but because of where we are in the show, it's just like, man, I don't want to say too much.
Right.
But there is so much potential there. They could have used James Gandolfini's son, who did a phenomenal job covering him in the Saints of Newark movie. Obviously everybody knows, James Gandolfini passed away some time ago, so there was no recreating the commercial with him unless you use some computerized stuff. But them using Meadow and then actually showing it actually focused on the parallel park. Like it showed that she could park up on a curve now. Like that to me was a rewarding Easter egg for anyone who has watched the show. And just talking about the parallel parking doesn't give too much away from what we get to look forward to. And then seeing AJ, just speaking as breaking the fourth wall. I always feared if any young actor was gonna, if we were going to get a message that some young actor passed, I was worried that it was going to be the actor who played Anthony Jr. So to see him still kicking, looking like the grungy hipster that he does, like, yeah, give me a 3-part miniseries talking about, the lives of these two. Did, Anthony Jr. ever, decide to follow in Tony's footsteps? Is that something that we're going to get to see in the series? Or Meadow, which for some people would be the most appropriate option. I mean, it seems like it skips a generation because we've seen this in season 1. And I'm bringing it back home. Livia, then they said it. Had she been born a man, she would have been the boss.
Right.
So it's not outside of the realm of possibility to think that Meadow would have that talent as well, man. So yeah. I would love a miniseries, bro. Meadow and Junior. Call it that. I mean, because Anthony Jr. is the new
Oh
Junior.
yeah, you're right. You are exactly right. I had never thought about that, Meadow and Junior. Yep. Um, but my wife and I have both had gastric bypass surgery, and so we try to eat clean now and do different things. And one of her things for a snack that's not as heavy as other things is popcorn. And she likes white cheddar popcorn. She had gotten
Mhm.
all of these little bags from Sam's Club. And she said to me a few weeks back, "Hey, can you go get me a bag of popcorn? We keep our chips and stuff over the refrigerator." So I grabbed it and I looked at it and I did a double take as I handed it to her. So I went and grabbed one and I've kept it beside the computer. It's called Pirate's Booty Aged White Cheddar Popcorn. And to me, the little cartoon character on there looks like Artie Bucco. Oh, I can't. Let me see. Can you see him?
Hey, that does look like Artie. Artie Bucco over here.
So I don't know if anything happens to Artie, but if not, he's got a second career as a spokesman for this popcorn if he ever goes into
Oh,
it.
so you took their money, huh? So
Oh,
you took their money, huh?
was it me?
Look, I know we're going to get to that because that's not in the episode that we're going to cover first. It's going to be in the second one. But man, that exchange, bro, between Artie and Tony was that was a powerful scene, man.
That was. You
So
are
you took their,
absolutely right.
so you took their money. Gosh, man, he was. Whew. All right, I'm stopping. I'm stopping. I'm stopping.
So, but first, you brought it up. Nobody knows anything. We start out that Pussy has back problems.
Right.
They're at the madam's house, and all of a sudden they hear him scream out. And at first they're like, "Ooh, he's having a good time."
Satisfied customer.
But no, he can't move, and they're like, and all of that. And then later on, he's at Jimmy Altieri's social club when the FBI raided and find a stash of guns. Jimmy is arrested. Pussy slips out, but is intercepted by an agent moments later. He literally runs into him. They're coming around the corner. He's released on bail soon after. Then McCaslin tells Tony that he has heard from a good source that Pussy is an FBI informant.
Wide for sound.
Tony is reluctant to believe it, but Vin points out how easily Pussy managed to get off from the raid. Like he made bail that quickly. He further explains that Pussy's alternative was long imprisonment for selling heroin, and as a man who cares deeply for his family, he was easy to turn. Tony insists on seeing the official report with Pussy's name on it, but Vin says he cannot obtain it. I can't get you the report. So Pussy has stopped collecting payments because of back pain, but Paulie, who sees the same doctor, has been told that there's nothing wrong with Pussy's back. Though this doctor adds that no one knows anything about backs. So he gives them kind of an out there. Like,
right.
I don't see anything, but nobody knows anything about backs. Tony asks Dr. Melfi's opinion. Back pain, she says, might be caused by stress, such as the burden of a secret. Tony tells Paulie not to act until Pussy's wire is seen, so Paulie insists that Pussy go to a bathhouse with him.
Fits.
But Pussy refuses to undress, saying that his doctor told him that heat is bad for him because of his blood pressure. At the same
He has an excuse for everything, man.
Everything. And I'm like, so you're sitting there watching this, and I'm going back and forth like, oh, is this what happened? Is he? Isn't he? But I could see it the other way as well. And I think we're supposed to, at this point, look at it like that.
What I can say, is, just going over the synopsis that you just gave, okay, we see Macasian, the cop, at the beginning of the episode watching Pussy as he's being let down the steps by Tony and Paulie. And then 4 days later, because you have Macasian go and tell Tony what he tells him, now I'm looking back at how Pussy was sitting at the table with Jimmy Altieri when the raid happened. He was staring at the door. Like he was looking fidgety and at the door as if he knew that they were coming.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is 4 days later after he's had a back blowout from some great sex from one of those concubines at the madam's house, he knew he shouldn't have been running if his back was really hurting. But he didn't seem to be struggling because of back pain. He seemed to be struggling because he was out of breath.
Right.
So he looks guilty. He really looks guilty right now, man. It's like you want to believe in Big Pussy, but it's kind of hard.
Right. So, at the same time, Silvio discovers that Vin owes Pussy $30,000, which he believes may be his motive to have Pussy disappear. Tony visits Pussy at his home and questions him sympathetically. You got anything you want to say to me? He asks to no response. Tony is distrustful and confused. He tells Silvio he feels like he's walking into walls. Because Tony is like, he can't believe it, but he's got to verify it. Then a fond personal relationship with the madam of the bordella. And he is there when the police raid it. Soon after, he commits suicide by jumping off a bridge. Jimmy is bailed out and visits Tony at his home. And if you know nothing, if you are just oblivious, which I am about a lot of things, a lot of times looking back in my life,
right?
There's no way you can avoid this. I got out. So yeah, tell me about everything illegal you've ever done in your life.
I mean, how do you got a problem? And then Tony recognizing that he obviously has a problem because he's thinking he's talking about pussy. And he's like, yeah, but we're handling it. And he's like, oh, so what you gonna do about that Cuban stash house money? Like, I mean, and he specifically says it like that every time. I mean, it's like what we've recognized in the season. And I feel like this season has done a really good job of showing how they conduct business. Phone call is made, it's done. Hang up. They don't talk about specifics at any point in time. Like, even when you're in person, they don't talk about specifics. So for him to say the Cuban stash house money, they're asking me questions about the Cuban you guys left in the apartment. I mean, it's like, come on, bro. He's as slimy as the gutter, baby.
Yeah. So this prompts Tony to suspect that Jimmy is in fact the rat. He and Pussy were arrested at the same time, and then Source mixed up the two fat fucks with black hair. Pussy is no longer suspected, but Pussy has now disappeared. Nobody can find him. They don't know what has happened to him. Junior at the same time visits Livia. She is bitter that Tony has sold her house. She tells Junior that several capos have placed their mothers at Green Grove and they hold meetings there. Junior instantly suspects that they are conspiring against him with Tony and decides that he must act against him. He assigns Mikey and Chucky to find hitmen from out of town. The title is said twice during the episode. First by Paulie in reference to Big Pussy's back problem, when he tells Tony a doctor found nothing wrong. And at the end of the episode by Tony in regards to Pussy's whereabouts. Nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything. When you're talking about, again, great acting, you're talking about Livia and Junior together. I like a lot of scenes that Livia's been in season one. Obviously, we waxed on her and AJ's scene together, because you don't know what you're talking about. A psychiatrist? You don't know what you're talking about. Like that was great. So now this time around, Livia, because she's a guilt trip artist. She said, "Oh, I'm so devastated when she knew Junior was coming. He's not just going to show up. So when he gets there, she's wiping her tears, she's crying, and she says, he sold my house, the house that me and Johnny made, and because Junior did not respond, angry. That's when she's like, oh." Well, I guess all of his friends should bring their mothers here, and so that they can live with instead of living with their sons like human beings. And then that's when we see Junior getting outraged because she is a key manipulator, bro. And now we're seeing, okay, she played Junior to the point where he has given the green light to put a hit out on his nephew. So, yeah. And look, that's her son, bro. That is her son. She gives 0 Fs. Like none. She has a can and it ain't 0 F light. This is the full original flavor, the original recipe of 0 Fs. she's chugging it down, man. She doesn't care about nothing. And I just, she's a badass, man. Sure enough.
Now, it was one of these episodes, I think, and we may have talked about it last time, but I thought it was either this episode or the next episode where Carmela calls her out on it. You know, she starts in with, he was a saint. She's like, it was so funny how we didn't see it when he was alive.
You didn't tell him that when he was alive, and she didn't acknowledge that at all.
Yep.
She just
Nope.
keeps on going with the guilt trip. You're not going to call me out. But, I mean, it's like, I think the only one that she really gets a reaction out of when she does that is Meadow currently, you know, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then Tony. Tony responds to her. Same thing with Junior. Junior and Tony respond to her. They listen to every word that she says. But AJ, that guilt stuff doesn't work on AJ, and it doesn't work on Carmela. Carmela just, she checks it out because she knows what's coming.
Absolutely. But this is also a great setup for the next episode, especially the part where Tony talks about he feels like he's walking into walls. Right. Because things are going to get much worse for Mr. Soprano before they get better.
Big facts.
We go on to episode 12, Isabella. Tony is deeply depressed after Pussy's unexplained disappearance. He sees a beautiful Italian woman at the Cusimano's backyard next door. She tells him her name is Isabella and that she is a foreign exchange student staying there while the Cusimanos are away. He takes her out to lunch and she describes the beauty of Avellino, where Tony's grandfather came from.
Right.
He talks about that. He has a daydream about Isabella in a rocking chair in a village house nursing a baby named Antonia. One day, Isabella is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
When the Cusimanos return, Tony asks about her and realizes that he has been hallucinating all of this time. Dr. Melfi instructs him to stop taking lithium and theorizes that Isabella was the idealized maternal figure. He not only hallucinated her, he hallucinated a argument and fight with Carmela. Yeah.
Yeah. That part of it, and this is one particular moment, you know, when we're doing our show where I feel like the synopsis from Wikipedia doesn't do it justice, because this particular thing is an arc in the show. We go along in this episode feeling like Isabella is real, but to me, this is also our first example of us as an audience looking at life through Tony's eyes. The whole episode seems kind of clunky. There's no real flow about it, and it is because Tony is going through this depression, and the medication that he's on has got him a little funky. Because when he's in the room by himself, if you pay attention to the fact that Carmela tells him she's going to the city to get AJ a suit twice, that's why you're supposed to know something's a little off, because you know she's got the means to get the suit. She would have got it the first time. She's not buying two suits, you know. But it's like I say, the episode is a little weird, and then that argument, you know, she's gonna cut his dick off. You know, I mean, like how messed up do you have to be to to hallucinate an entire argument with your spouse? It's that whole thing was just tough. But Dr. Melfi pointed out, you know, you didn't come on to this woman. We've never seen Tony deprive himself of anything that he wanted, even as far as to go after Dr. Melfi and kiss her on the mouth. So right. Why wouldn't Tony go after Isabella unless it had a deeper meaning? So yeah. But that again, that was over the course of the entire episode. So I hope that people watching it can really get that feel.
Mikey acting through Donnie Paduano contracts two black gunmen to carry out the hit on Tony. Junior cannot bear to hear the details of the plan when Mikey tries to report. So he wants it done, I don't want to hear any details about it.
I delegate and I got to be involved. Yeah.
Chris is concerned about his boss's emotional state and secretly follows him, unknowingly preventing the hit when he pulls his car right up next to the assassin's car. There's an urgent outdoor meeting between Mikey and Donnie, with Junior hiding in the back seat of Mikey's car. Donnie promises the hit will be the next day and casually remarks that even Tony's mother wants him dead. Junior, fearing the gossip, gestures to Mikey that he should kill Donnie, and he doesn't. But you also see what's happening, and I feel like the way that they did it was very good, very subtle. Junior is also like taking like Rolaids and all of that, and you're like, is this because he's an old man who's now in charge, or is it because he's put a hit out on his nephew?
That stress. We're seeing mental health play its role in the physical form with people, but that line Junior has, I mean, it his leadership style. You know, he wants to be seen as the boss unequivocally. Don't talk about me. He was like, oh, so what? He's going to be making jokes about me next, and, and that's it. You know, now this dude is dead as a doornail, and it's that exchange between Christopher and the hitman. You know, like had the hit gone down, you know, Tony would be gone because
Mm-hmm.
he was still on lithium at the time. Two sheets to the wind, he was done. Like there's no way he's quick enough to take that down. But you know, just that exchange when the guy says, "I need you to move your car, police." Chris is like, "Let me see your badge. Just move this piece of shit." I mean, it's great writing, man. Great writing, great scene.
But then also Tony is like, he's like, oh no, those are the guys that I saw. And Tony's like, when did you see him? Like,
When you
what,
see him.
yeah, what was going on? When did you see him? So the next day, the assassins make their move in a ferocious struggle. One of them is killed, and the other is briefly dragged along the street as Tony drives away. Elated, he can't help crashing into a parked car. In the hospital, Tony says that his injuries, only minor, occurred in an attempted carjack. A story that not even AJ believes. FBI agent Harris comes to his bed and offers a deal, including immunity from prosecution, which Tony scornfully rejects. The next day, Livia and Junior call on Tony at home. Livia claims that she doesn't know who Meadow is. Junior later comments on the good timing of this apparent memory loss. But things are starting to come undone here, with one episode left of season 1.
Is I'm just looking at all of this stuff that's going on with Tony when they actually came at him, and the worst thing that Tony had out of it, he had a glass of orange juice that got busted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's it stinks to see, you know, because what we didn't mention in that, I mean, we get another great exchange between Livia and Junior when they're outside standing in line for the matinee. And, you know, Olivia is comparing Tony to someone else who had a lobotomy, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, the state that my son is in, he's a shell of a man, you know, rather be dead than to walk around like that. You know, like this is what a mother is saying about her son, knowing that the hit is on, and Junior doesn't want to hear anything about it. He's like, look, the orders have been given. I don't want to hear anything about it. Because, you know, like the stress, I think it's playing a role on him, man. So, yeah, it's things are starting to come to a head. And now that Tony has survived this hit, you know, it's only it's only a matter of time, right? But what are you supposed to do to your mom?
Well, um, let's say there were some critical reaction to this episode. Let's talk about that real quick, and then we'll go into what do you do about your mom and everybody else. When like I said, everything is thrown at the wall on this final episode. They're like,
Right.
"Don't worry, we'll come up with something else in season 2. Let's throw everything up there."
Everything.
Alan Sepinwall has lauded Isabella as one of the greatest episodes of The Sopranos. Emily Vanderwolf found the subplot with the titular character to be outlandish, but still described the episode as featuring classic scene after classic scene. And you realize, like you said, about halfway through, you may not fully know what's going on, but you know that there's something off when it comes to Tony.
Right.
Whether it's his mental state, the fact that he is like feeling like he's running into walls and coming apart at the seam, because him just wandering around, like we saw him in the pilot, he's getting into the pool with his bathrobes, but that's because of his birds.
Yeah.
But now he's just, I mean, he's almost like a zombie walking around.
Zombie walking.
Even when he gets up and out of the house, like him buying the orange juice, you're like, that is not the normal Tony. Like it took like almost 3 times as long as you think it would take for him just to buy this orange juice. And you could look at, oh, well, it's a pacing thing. They're building up the suspense because we know that there's these guys across the street, but he doesn't know. But still, like, there's just something off. And it just at the end when you realize, oh my goodness, he hallucinated all of this.
The whole thing, yeah. It's wild because yeah, you're right. There's something off about Tony. He's usually a very conscious person of his surroundings, especially when going to Dr. Melfi's office. But the botched hit job day, that first day, he was, look, you said it, he was a zombie. He's not looking around. I think if he's not on lithium and dealing with everything with the depression of pussy and all that stuff, he notices that Chris is following him, right? But because he's not on his game, he doesn't notice Chris. He doesn't notice anything. That's why I say, had Christopher not been there, you know, R.I.P. Tony, because he wasn't he wasn't himself. He wouldn't have been able to fight it off. But that next day, you know, he's off the medication. He got his jolt, as they say. He got his jolt. Sure enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we had finally arrived, folks, and if they didn't know, they were going out in a blaze of glory. If they didn't know, oh, we don't know if we're going to get another season. Let's throw everything at them.
I dream of Jenny Kuzumata.
So, Jimmy Altieri's behavior at a capo meeting convinces Tony and Junior that he's an FBI informant. Jimmy is lured into a trap by Christopher and killed by Sylvia. His body is dumped in an alley and with a dead rat stuffed in his mouth. So they're like, because at first he's like, "Are you crazy? I'm a made man.
I'm a made man." Yeah, yeah. And he didn't. And Christopher makes the comment he didn't have the opportunity to get anything on. And you know why? And Sil says, "Why don't you speak up into the microphone?" And Jimmy immediately knew. Then he knew. He was like, "They know, Mother of God."
Yeah,
that's all he could say. Mother of God. That's all he could say.
So, at the same time, knowing that Tony's life is in danger, Dr. Melfi openly speculates about his mother, noting that she often speaks of infanticide. She suggests that she has borderline personality disorder, that she creates bitterness and conflict, and has no love or compassion. Dr. Melfi's just putting all the cards down. She is dealing a hand here. She's like, look, I gotta say it. And Tony cannot bear to hear this. He may think all of these things about his mother, but you can't let somebody else say that about your mother.
Right.
So he crosses over to Melfi's chair, looms over her, calls her a twisted fucking bitch, and storms out.
So he also said, you know, I should be bashing your face in. You
Right.
know what I mean? He definitely physically threatened her. I will say, with regards to that exchange, you know, as somebody who deals with BPD, it's like, okay, Olivia definitely fits the description. But Tony's of that old school mindset, man. It can be true, but you don't talk about what goes on in my family.
Right.
and you know, he's a very proud person to the point to where he would, and if you go back and just think about the times that he's in Dr. Milfy's office, he'll talk about his mom very candidly, but then, oh, she's a little sweetie pie, oh, she's a little angel, so he makes excuses for her so that the outside world always sees her as a sweet old lady, even though he knows, who she is.
Right. And I think I've seen this a lot in my own personal life. There's also a thing like I can bad talk whoever it is, but
Right.
don't you do it.
Don't you do it.
Right.
Because I'll bash your
You don't
face
have
in.
that. You don't have that right. I've got the right. Yeah, I have seen that so many times. But so he feels like, and Dr. Melfi knows it. Like she's like, I think she's a little intimidated, but she has to lay, like I said, lay those cards down. I cannot, sit here and not say this because your life is literally in danger.
Big time facts. And I see why, he felt guilty, come to find out the truth. Because we know, fourth wall be damned, we know that Olivia's plotting against Tony, but he doesn't know it at that point and doesn't want to believe it. Junior's one thing, but to think that his mother was involved in it as well, it doesn't make sense. Why would this happen? So, I can understand the outrage, but then this isn't the first time that he's gotten in Dr. Milfy's face.
Right.
And any therapist is going to tell you, you're putting yourself in a situation for bad things to happen to you. So, is she a thrill seeker? What's going on with Dr. Milfy, man? Because she keeps letting this guy back into her life.
And you start to see a little bit of the pushback, like, no, look what you made my life in the next episode, but we'll get there. We've
Right.
got some other stuff. You brought it up like Tony didn't know, but then Tony is brought to the FBI safe house, and Agent Cubitoso reveals that Livia's room at the retirement home was bugged and plays recordings that confirm Tony's suspicion that the attempt on his life was planned by his uncle, goaded on by his mother.
Right.
And that, to me, flips the switch for Tony. Like, got a lot of other stuff happening. There's a lot of things going left and right here, but Tony, that flips the switch. He's got a lot of stuff to do, but in his mind is going to right some wrongs.
An embarrassing moment, and I think Agent Harris was embarrassed for Tony, because he's how I would have expected Tony to be if Tony wasn't the character that he is. Agent Harris didn't want to make eye contact with anybody. He kept putting his head down because this conversation that you're hearing is a mother plotting on her son. And not only did they bug the room, but they bugged Olivia. Because that conversation where they were outside standing in line, I was talking about the lobotomy, they were outside of Green Grove. So they shouldn't have had access to that had they not bugged her purse. So yeah, I mean, the FBI is going to great lengths to catch these people, to catch Tony and the family. And it's just, how do you not, and obviously I know we're going to talk about it, but how do you not consider, you know, turning state evidence when you see that your own family is plotting to have you killed? I mean, that's tough, bro. Like, you can't even go to them to hide out when somebody's coming after you. That's tough.
But I think also that speaks to Tony's mind and also his image. Think about back to Isabella, and also in the pilot, where Carmela tells Father Phil, "Oh, Tony likes the scenes in The Godfather where they go back to Italy and stuff like that." He, regardless of what happened, that's family, and you don't go against family. And I've got to stand here, but I've got to stand here, but I don't have to stand for it. He's like, I'm not going to
Right.
turn on them. I'm going to take care of it myself.
Right.
But first, we've reached what I like to call sunlight is the best disinfectant portion of the program. Tony returns to Dr. Melfi,
Right.
who was like trying to block the door and lock it and stuff like that. And he's like, I promise you nothing's going to happen to you and all that. He explains that the murder was attempted partly because he was seeing her and that her life is now in danger. So he has brought her in there.
Right.
As much as she tried to set up those things and as much as her family said this guy is evil and you need to drop him,
Right.
because I have talked with, actually, I have no problems. I see a therapist every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to my therapist, not about this, like we're not chatting about the Sopranos, but she's like, unless your life is in danger, you really can't
Right.
drop a patient. A patient can drop you, but you can't really drop a patient. But now he explains to her that her life is in danger, but he feels like he can't go on from here if part of the reason is that, my nephew's seeing a psychiatrist, and because of the, those the Escobar brothers in
The
Los
Escobar
Angeles,
brothers.
they can, they can, the doctor can certainly testify against them. And my son is seeing a psychiatrist, so Tony may not know of all of those, but he has a feeling
Right.
that's what's been said. So he's like, I can't go on. Your life is in danger. You need to get out.
Right.
Tell him August came early.
Because
Because
she takes the month of August off.
that's
Yeah.
when a lot of therapists take the month of August off. He tells her to leave town. He then confides to his crew that he's seeing a psychiatrist. So Silvio and Polly accepted, Christopher cannot and walks out.
Walks out.
Tony and his crew then begin to retaliate against Junior's crew, killing Chucky and Mikey. I'm going to tell you what, I'm not a huge Mikey fan, but brother was trying his damnedest to get away. And I'm
He
like,
wants
look,
to live.
if he gets away, it's over. And all of that. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, it always happens. It's like the horror film. You're getting away and then you trip on something because they're taking out. But he's dressed for it. They are not. And so he takes off into the woods. And I'm like, do I want Mikey to live? Because I'm like, some way they're going to take care of him. But
right.
So yeah, Tony's trying to even the books. He's trying to do all that, and part of that is taking care of Mikey and Chucky.
Yes.
However, Junior and the rest of his crew are then arrested. Tony's lawyer tells him that he was not indicted because the charges relate to a stock fraud scam in which he was not involved. Junior is then offered a lesser charge if he confesses that Tony is the de facto boss of the family and he's just the front, but he refuses. No, I'm the. He's almost like indignant. Like, how dare you? How dare you say that?
He's like, he's saying to him, he's like, my guy couldn't lead a baseball team, let alone be the boss. So I think, to me, Junior at this moment recognizes, that Tony was in fact running it, and Junior's not going to be a snitch. He'll fall on the sword. He took a hit on the man's life. If the feds aren't knocking on his door, Junior's getting popped by somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and fall on my sword for this one because this is the only way I'm coming out of this one alive.
Absolutely. So this is not the only thing happening on this episode. Carmela sees that Father Phil is now close with the recently widowed Rosalie, Jackie's widow. When he calls on Carmela, knowing that she's alone at home, she rebuffs him. She tells him that he takes advantage of spiritually thirsty women and that he is somehow stimulated by the food and the sexual tension. If they went ahead and had sex, it'd be over. But
It'd
as
be
long
over.
as the tension is there and he can
Right.
and ride that,
It's
so
hot.
he's crushed, and he's also got something for the food because you can
Yeah.
see all that. And I'll tell you what, when she had shown up with that food and saw him there with Rosalie and then throws the food out, I'm like, you know what, Carmela, you didn't have to do that to that food.
You did not. Like, there was no point, but clearly you throwing that food out lets me know exactly why you made the food. You know, I mean, and that, if I'm correct, that scene happens before she tells him about himself.
Right. Oh
Because
yeah,
that
yeah,
scene, yeah, that's what prompts her to tell him about himself. But I mean, Father Phil comes off like a little bit of an alcoholic because she's like, I'm getting ready to make myself some coffee. You want some? And he's like, well, only if you're making yourself some. I mean, hell, it's almost drinking hour. And she's like, you want a glass of wine? He's like, I'll have a little A. He knew what he wanted. He knew where he was at, man. I mean, it's like, I'm going to say what I will about Tony Soprano, but I absolutely love reaping the benefits. And she said that you're up here eating his steaks, drinking his liquor, watching his DVD player.
yep.
Like, yeah, so, yeah. Father Phil, he's, I don't know how to pronounce the Yiddish word that he gave himself for a leech, but he's that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But so let's go to where they kind of leave us for the season. Livia is showing signs of senility, but when Artie visits her, she remembers that Tony was responsible for burning down his restaurant. He then angrily confronts Tony with a rifle in the parking lot.
So you took their money.
You took their money. But Tony manages to persuade him that his mother is unreliable and confused. Though still enraged, Artie destroys the rifle and leaves. As time passes and his newly rebuilt restaurant is a success, he finds peace.
Okay.
Tony goes to Livia's retirement home and grabs a pillow, intending to smother her. However, Livia has just had a stroke and is wheeled past Tony on a gurney. And you would think, oh my goodness, that's where they're going to leave it. He was like, oh my God. That's what I thought was going to happen. He was like, oh my God, I was just about to do this. I thought, but Tony's like, nope, I'm all
No,
in now.
I'm all in now.
He does discard the pillow, but leans very close to her face and whispers that he knows what she did.
I know what you
The
did.
staff haul him off as he shouts, look at her face. She's smiling.
And she
And
was.
oh yeah, and she was. Absolutely. Later that night, Tony and his family go to Artie's restaurant to wait out a thunderstorm. After a little hesitation, he welcomes them. As they eat by candlelight, Tony raises his glass to the little moments that were good.
Right.
And you see the kids are there, then they go back and they're, saying hello to their friends and hanging out with them. Christopher's girlfriend has gotten a job there, so he's there with her there at the bar.
Right.
Silvio and Paulie are at another
All
table. They were the customers that were just finishing up, and Artie's like,
right.
no, come in and all of that. So we're left in kind of a, a safe spot, but all of this stuff has happened. Like I said, Junior's been arrested. Livia's had her stroke or her episode,
Right.
as we learn. We don't know where Pussy is, but as of this moment, Tony feels like everything is okay, and that's where we leave season one.
Point to say safe-ish. Looking at the conversation between Paulie, who's covered in ointment for uh, poison ivy, and he's having a conversation with Sil. So, the chief is in therapy. How's that sit with you?
Mm-hmm.
Sil's coming back. How's that sit with you? And they're having the exchange where, I mean, obviously Paulie said he's okay with it because he was in therapy, but it wasn't a woman. I can't wrap my head around that.
Right.
So it's like we want to believe that the whole therapy of it all is in the rear view completely, but there's still that seed that maybe it's not.
Right.
But we do get reconciliation with Artie, because obviously if Artie was still beefing with Tony, he's not going to let him in. We see Charmaine is smiling in there. She's glad to have Carmela there. So because she's happy with her new restaurant. Say what you will about the whole finger thing. Nah, I got my new restaurant now, baby. So
Right.
yeah, Charmaine is totally feeling great. But yeah, final thoughts on the season. Great way to start a show. Great way to start a show. They got us invested in characters. They got us invested in throwaway characters like Brian, Filoni,
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Filoni, and why he was important to Christopher and why he was huge for Chris's character arc in the season. And again, Livia and Anthony Jr. Scene of the season for me. I'll always want to do it. He's in therapy. Nuh-uh. Like, yeah, uh-huh. A therapist? No. Uh-huh. I don't know what you're talking about. But that whole thing, that's me forever, man. I love it.
And AJ is like, why would I lie?
Why would I
Like,
lie? Because, uh-huh. I heard him talking about it. Uh-huh. No. I don't know what you're talking about. I love it. Great. So,
um,
yes. To season 2, my guy.
yeah, but one thing you were talking about, we were talking about Mikey. He fingers Junior for killing Brendan, and Christopher
Quit.
calls Junior Mr. Magoo.
Mr. Magoo. Oh, yeah. Mr. Magoo shot him in the eye. Nah.
Yeah. Uh, a couple of other things for about this episode. When the FBI offers to play Tony portions of surveillance tape in an informal sit down, he jokes that if that's the Springsteen box set, he's already got it. Um, so we go into season 2. Guy walks into a psychiatrist's
Walked
office.
into a psychiatrist's office.
I love the opening of this episode. Frank Sinatra, it was a very good year.
Right.
And you see scenes of different people, including AJ, dressed up and trying to get the tie right. So you realize that some time has passed and people
Aging
have
up. Right.
aging up and people are maturing. And then we dip into where everyone is. Several months after Mikey's execution, Livia's hospitalization, and Uncle Junior's arrest, business appears to be returning to normal. Tony Soprano is no longer receiving therapy from Dr. Melfi and is self medicating. When his mother is mentioned, he says she's dead to me.
She's dead to me.
He is still seeing Irina. The money is still coming in from Ray, Paulie, and Silvio. Philly Parisi is killed for spreading gossip about Tony, his mother, and his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Tony's older sister, Janice, arrives from Seattle.
Right.
Tony is
Havarti.
yes. Tony is apprehensive because he knows she will make financial demands, but he lets her stay at his home. Now, I was watching this one night and my wife came home and I'm like, can I just finish this scene or something, whatever? And she's like, how much time is left? Oh no, you can finish that episode and all that. And I'm trying to explain at least part of what's happening. I'm like,
Right.
his mother's not dead, but she's dead to him. And I'm like, I was thinking, I wasn't sure about this, but I'm thinking like if she needs something, like he'll pay for it, but he doesn't want to talk about her and doesn't,
Right.
I mean, like she's dead, like,
Right.
and all of that. I was trying to explain that to my wife who didn't get it at all. I'm like, she was kind of responsible for him almost being killed.
Yep.
Um, At a family gathering, Carmela smiles as she watches Tony embracing Janice and his younger sister Barbara. But Janice is interested in Olivia's will and her house. Tony is trying to sell the house and suspects that Janice is trying to obstruct the sale. His mood then worsens after Janice comes.
Right.
While driving, he has a panic attack and runs off the road. He consults a new psychiatrist who tells Tony that he recognizes him and is not taking new patients.
I saw Analyze This.
Analyze this. Tony's like, what?
That's a comedy.
And this is the only thing I did not like about this episode. He phones Dr. Melfi in the motel room where she's been seeing patients and tells him things are now safe. She is frightened, realizing that he knows where she is. But they show her taking new patients in the motel room. She says goodbye to one and immediately welcomes the other one in. And that does not happen.
Nope.
Like, my therapist sees somebody before me, and if I get there early, she's like, give me just a second. Like, she'll have to like type up her notes or
right. Yeah. There's got to be some transition.
Right. Usually you don't like the person to see the next person coming in, but I know who sees my therapist. I don't know the guy. I know that it's a guy, and I say hello and he says hello, but I don't bust through and like, what's wrong with him? Let me take notes. And he doesn't care what's wrong with me.
So for the continuity police that are watching the show, I'll go ahead and give you one of the few instances, plot holes that we find. Season 1, Junior finds out about Tony and the other capos in Green Grove because Olivia is pissed off that Tony sold the house.
Mm-hmm.
Sold the house. Now, season 2, we've got Janice stealing the signs because Tony again is trying to sell the house. So that was the one little piece of continuity that changed, where I get why you want to keep that there because it's a great plot line for the turmoil between Anthony and Janice. But again, if we're going based off season 1, the house was sold already. So I'm guessing it fell through in escrow.
That's what
and it's back on the market.
You could have an easy out with that. That's why they have things like escrow. It was sold, but it fell through before and they withdrew their bid. Now it's back on the market.
Makes sense.
So Tony confronts Dr. Melfi at a diner and tries to apologize. She tells him one of her patients committed suicide because her treatment was disrupted. On his side, he tries to reassure her that nobody got killed because of her.
Right.
After a furious pause, she says, "Get out of my life."
Get out of my life. When Dr. Melfi makes the comment, she can't call into work. She can't get bagels because she feels a little blue. So the way she says it, I like Dr. Melfi, man. Lorraine Bracco she does great work. She, to me, owns the character that is, Dr. Melfi. So I enjoy the scenes that she has with Tony because I recognize that Tony is using her therapy to legitimize the decisions that he makes. He recognizes that he's going to have to do bad things. Listening to her is how he legitimizes it, which is why you notice he quotes her in a lot of his interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So he, in essence, is being made to be a better criminal because of Dr. Melfi.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But there does come a time where she is now trying to put a stop to it.
Yeah, because she recognizes it. She sees it firsthand.
Yeah, because now he has disrupted her practice and somebody else, an innocent party, suffered because of that and took their own life. Yeah. Christopher hires someone to take his stockbroker's licensing exams and becomes the SEC compliance officer at an investment firm. There's actually a boiler room operating a pump and dump scam.
Mm-hmm.
He is assisted by two young men eager to make a mark, Matt Bevilacqua and Sean Gismonti. And if you were to say, come up with two stereotypical characters who want to be something but are no good at anything, it would
That's
be
it.
these two guys.
Chippendales.
Yes, yes. While Christopher is out, they beat one of the brokers who was providing genuine investment advice. No, you're supposed to be. What was the
Pushing
what?
webistics.
Yes, you're supposed to be
Webistics.
pumping that. Tony rebukes Chris. We can't do this, telling him to
Right.
take his responsibility seriously, but ends the meeting with a smile. One day, though, who appears at the bottom of the driveway? It's been a while. Big Pussy. One morning in Tony's basement, Pussy explains that he's been in Puerto Rico having his back treated and got involved with a woman there. He expresses his resentment at being suspected of turning informant.
Right.
Tony is at first furious that he has not been in touch. He pats down Pussy while giving him a hug. And I'm like, dude, like, why don't you like reach around while you're at it? And when Pussy is offended, he pulls him in for a real hug. He allows him to start earning again, and his story checks out. But Tony is still a little suspicious. And more about his suspicions in the next episode that we'll do, because there's a lot going on with Big Pussy. But in this episode, we've also learned that Carmela's parents have avoided family functions at the Soprano home that Livia attended for years because Livia had attended those functions, and they do not like her. And they also mentioned in this references to past episodes that it was mentioned that the house was for sale, but now it's still up for sale in this one. So they do mention that. A lot of cultural references in this episode. Edward G. Robinson playing a mobster is briefly seen and heard as Key Largo plays on a TV in Christopher's apartment. When Adriana picks up Christopher at his office, she calls him EF and tells him that she is listening, a reference to the ads for brokerage of EF Hutton and their 1970s advertising slogan, when EF Hutton talks, people listen. Silvio makes several imitations of actors in The Godfather and The Godfather Part 3. At Tony's cookout, the crew chats about Shelley Hack of Charlie's Angel fame, leading to Paulie singing the jingle for Charlie Cologne. Besides co-starring in Charlie's Angels, Shelley Hack also the model appearing in advertisement for Charlie Perfume by Revlon. Philip Parisi's death is a reference to The Godfather when Paulie is shot and killed in the driver's seat of a car because of his role in the attempted murder of Vito Corleone. Also, as Philly gets in his car to leave home, his wife tells him, "Don't forget the pastries."
Don't forget the pastries.
A reference to the scene where Peter Clemenza's wife also tells him, "Don't forget the cannoli," before he drives off to see that Paulie is killed. And when Tony is seeing his prospective new psychiatrist, he mentions the film Analyze This. And after the opening credits, we talked about it. The episode shows the status of all the major characters, overscored by Frank Sinatra's "It Was a Very Good Year." So this is where we leave it. Every time has picked up. Livia is still struggling with the after effects of her episode. Janice has showed up, and Tony doesn't like it, but accepts that she's there. Christopher has gotten a new position. Big Pussy shows back up. People are earning again, and Tony is the de facto boss. So overall, where are we at in your mind?
Tensions are there. At this point, we've seen Junior's already in this episode. We see Junior's made a motion to be released.
Mhm.
for health reasons. So that's always going to be an issue. Is he going to try and come back in and reassume power? You know, with regards to snitching, you know, we don't know what's going on with Pussy. You know, him leaving the way that he did doesn't look good. So I mean, it's just like we got to find out what's what with that one because the way Tony was looking at him whenever they were at the barbecue, and he's just like just he just doesn't. You know, I don't think he totally trusts him. So you know, we got that. And with regards to the kids, you know, I feel like you know we're already showing just based on what we saw in the beginning. You know, Meadow is still clinging to you know family with Livia, which is really surprising. And then we're seeing AJ, you know, growing more and coming into his own a little bit more. So this season here should be full of some shenanigans, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I have not seen. I have seen the next episode because I'm like, I got to watch the next episode. Big things coming up, including another all-time classic, Livia AJ scene.
Nice.
So, folks, I know people who are following along with us. They watch an episode and then watch us talk about that episode, then stop. So I know people watching along. So if you're
Nice.
watching along, when you get to the next episode, there is a classic AJ Livia
Awesome.
scene in that. So before we go though, man, go ahead and plug away everything and anything that you've got for the people of YouTube.
Ah, man, thank you as always for having me, man. I enjoy doing this work for you. If you want to hear work from me outside of the awesome work that I do with Joey, man, I'm gonna send you over to Spotify. There's two places you can catch me. One is the I'm Hybro podcast, and the other is the Tokyo Smoke Show. Both of which are gonna give you some of my personality outside of the amazing work that I do with the Joey Harris, man. So. Thank you all for listening. If you haven't clicked subscribe, go ahead and do that. Tell your friends about us. You know why? Because it'll make you look cool because this is the type of stuff that you watch. Don't you want to be cool? Thanks, Joey, man. Good stuff.
Absolutely, man. You can catch new episodes of either me and TJ here or just me every Wednesday, 7 a.m. New video drops. You can catch my wrestling podcast, the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, every Thursday, wherever you get your fine podcasts. And new episodes of the Joey Harris Show podcast drop every Sunday morning. And like TJ said, hit the subscribe button and then hit that bell. You'll be notified every time a new episode drops. Like, share, comment, and go and have a great day. For TJ, this is Joey. Thanks for you all, and we will see you down the road.